Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a video on top things that you should do before your server merges in New World, or things that you can possibly do if your servers have just merged. I know that a lot are coming up in the next period here on New World. Obviously, ours are just around the corner. My personal server is in a couple of days' time, and most of the general servers across the board are going to be coming up now if you haven't already had them. So I wanted to bring you guys a few tips and tricks on things that you can do to get yourselves ahead of the curve. Now, obviously, there's a few fairly obvious things like gaining materials, but of course, they do cost inventory space. So what I would recommend is any that are kind of high priority, which right now is any tier 5 raw materials, but specifically the legendary materials. So, for example, runic leather, any asmodium, like you can see there, bright scale, so any of these kind of phoenix weave, all of the rare type drops, and also things like blister weave, which you can now craft with the raw tier 5 mats as well, which is 250 per one. All of those type things I would save up. The actual raw mats themselves take up quite a lot of inventory space, so I would probably recommend craft the legendaries and not stockpile too many of the raw mats unless you need them. If you do need some, you could go ahead and do that, but I am going to move on to more things that you can do that don't necessarily take up a ton of space, because I know if you're anything like me, you guys probably won't have that much space. So moving into it a bit further then here, it's going to be looking at weapon mastery. Now, this is going to be something really important to level up. As you guys can see here on the screen, a lot of my weapons are at level 20 now. I've got the Great Axe, the Warhammer, the hatchet, and we've also got the life staff, and then we've got the rapier up to 19. We've got 10 and 11 on the bow and musket, 10 on the sword and shield. You know, I've been going through the motions of most of the weapons here, but what you can do is any weapons that you're currently using obviously should be at 20. Any weapons that you're considering using or do switch to for certain things, like maybe for PvE or PvE, should also be at 20. And then anything that you might be wanting to switch to in the future, hence why I've leveled up the rapier a little bit here, you should also have that at level 20. Now, the reason for this is because it's going to be much easier and much more uncontested to be able to do this in whichever zone you would like to do whilst the servers are less populated. For example, a couple of examples here of kind of my favourite areas to go. Monarch's Bluff, the elite zone down the bottom here, which is called Dead Man's Cove. You go in here and fight these mobs. You can do this solo at level 60 if you've got a decent kind of set of gear and a decent weapon. Obviously, if you respec to kind of fit the format of whichever is going to scale your damage, you can easily go in there solo and level up some of these weapons very, very quickly, and it's what I've done for most of mine. Doing this solo or duo is really the best way to do it, but solo is by far the most experience. Another way to do the really good weapon XP is actually to go all the way up to Shattered Mountains, again if you are level 60, and you can go ahead and do these castles that you'll see jotted around the map, these ones here as well, and these guys are really, really good because you can go in either solo, but there is a lot of mobs in there, so I would recommend going in 2s and 3s, and hopefully one of your healing. Go in there, kill a load of the mobs, and you will get lots and lots and lots of weapon XP very, very quickly. They're not elite enemies, but there is a ton of them, so you can stack up the kills very, very fast. Makes it pretty much as good as, if not better, than Dead Man's Cove. But again, if you are a leveling player or a lower level player in general, scrolling back down to Dead Man's Cove, it's going to be the best place that you can go right now because you can stack a 5-man, go in there and level up some of your weapons before these mergers do come in, which is going to be something which is very, very beneficial. Now, another thing to do, obviously, is to roll your elite zones before they get too contested, especially doing them PvP flagged. I know right now my group can get on and do these completely uncontested, and if we are contested, generally we're on good terms with the players we've got on our server. So before that goes to pot in a couple of days, where it's a brand new mash pot of every single player that is on the server set coming together. Obviously, the first couple of days you might be fighting people and stuff, trying to contest these areas. Right now it's pretty chilled, so we can go up to Shattered Mountains and do these ones, particularly now obviously with Ebon Scale being buffed, and of course obviously Malevolence as well over in Eden's Grove. These areas are really, really good. And then of course you've got your traditional Reekwater areas as well. Any of those, leveling them up, running the chests round, especially trying to get, you know, any of your higher tier drops, particularly the trophy crafting materials, are going to be really, really good, and those are going to be coming into a later tip, but they should sell very well on a new server, or at least even if it's not at first. Hopefully further down the line you'll be able to get some nice profit from those. So I would certainly recommend trying to get your hands on them. Maybe it's even that you need some of them yourself before you go into these mergers. Now, something to consider with this as well, getting the item sets, or the gear sets I should say, for each crafting skill. So things like weaponsmithing, armor smithing, jewel crafting, etc. is also going to be something worth hanging on to, whether you want to use them yourself or save them for a transfer. Again, if they're not selling for much on your server right now, when you do get that merger, you're probably going to be able to sell them for a little bit more than what you can now, even if it's not the first couple of weeks. Probably naturally everyone will try and sell everything when they move across, so give it a couple of weeks and then you should get the prices going back up. Particularly one of the most beneficial things you can farm is the weaponsmithing hat, which comes from the Mangled Heights priest boss right at the end, and this is a very rare job. I've been searching for this for a very long time on my server. I'm going to try pick it up cheap when we do transfer, which is why I would say wait a couple of weeks, because I think everybody is going to do that. But yeah, if you can farm that, things like that are quite rare drops, you're going to be in for a lot of money a couple of weeks after the merges go through. Now, the next thing that I would say here to do in terms of waiting for the transfers is, of course, to try and level up some of your trade skills. The reason for this is going to be because you want to be able to get ahead of these, and particularly you can level these up very easily on a less populated server, because either you can get the nodes because they're uncontested, or generally you're going to have a lot cheaper of a price in terms of what the materials cost if you are going to buy your way through some of the levels in those trade skills as well, particularly some of the high-end ones. Weaponsmithing, I know for me, it was a real pain to do, so I ended up buying sort of the last 20 levels worth. It did cost a lot, but it's still going to be significantly cheaper than on a bigger server, so that's going to be something pretty good. You want to try and get some of these up, particularly weaponsmithing, armoring, engineering, dual crafting, arcana, because obviously those are going to be really, really good in terms of when the gear scores drop down. Those things, if they're crafted items, do not drop, which is really, really good. Cooking, you're going to be there for consumables, and furnishing is one of the best ones to get for trade skill aptitude containers. So any of your crafting ones right now are really, really worthwhile doing. As you can see, fishing for me, it's not a strong area, but obviously you've got things like harvesting, tracking, mining, all at 200. We're getting there with logging as well. It's taking a little bit of time, but we are getting up there. And of course, you can get the containers with those the more that you get to level 200, so you can get easily some of those per day. You might not even need to track them, like I've just been trickling in a few per day. And of course, it gives you a lot more options, like I said there, when those crafting things do come in. If you've got one of these skills at the top here, up to that level 200 range, you're going to be making some decent money when that starts to cut closer and closer to the cutoff point. Now, another thing here is going to be to buy cheap trophy materials, if there is any, or indeed hold on to any that you get, like I mentioned before. And these are going to be obviously on the trading post. You can look for things like stacked decks, and of course right now these are pretty expensive on my server, 34,000, but we have checked some of the other servers, not particularly ours because we can't check get characters in our world set, but we've checked other servers that are getting merged into, and some of those have these up for like literally 10,000, so a third if not more of the price than what it is here on my server. So obviously when you go over, if you can grab any that are cheap, but equally if you've got some cheap on your server because it's oversaturated right now, buy a few of them up, because players like myself, even if they go up 5,000-6,000 to 15,000-16,000, that's still half price from what we're seeing right now, so we probably will buy those. So it's definitely going to be worth doing that. As well as that, any stat boost foods that are cheap, so if you go on here you can either search for them specifically if you know what you're after, or you can go to the consumables tab, and what I would do is go down to the attribute bonus foods, look at whichever one you want to look at. So for example, constitution's always a winner, and then I like to filter it by tier, get it up to tier 5 at the top, and of course you can go through and see here all of these are tier 5 ones. I know that roasted rabbit with seasoned vegetables is the plus 40 con one, and right now 149 seems to be that. What you can also do from that place is look at that one and say that's what we want to look for, so obviously then you can search specifically for that one, and you can see, and then you can obviously filter that by price, lowest starting at the top. You can see 98 would be the cheapest for that, there's 30 available, so we could buy all of those if they're cheap. But obviously if you've not checked the prices on the other server, maybe you want to hold off unless you can craft it and buy the materials for somebody else to craft it for you. But consumables are going to be really, really good. Same with health pots, mana pots, regen pots, corruption tinctures and coatings. Same with blight or angry earth coatings for the arenas and dungeons. And then of course you've got all of your other things like your gemstone dust, your oak flesh balms. All of those things, incense, are going to sell for a lot, because when servers transfer, there's going to be a lot of players competing, a lot of people to serve with the consumables, a lot of wars going on, suspectably, because I know that our server is certainly going to be having a lot of wars. So making the most of that and making the most of the profit in that is probably going to see your consumables rise in a decent amount of price. These you don't need to stockpile tons and tons and tons. You can maybe buy 10 of these roasted rabbits with seasoned vegetables, and you would probably make a good bit of profit off those. So for example, just take a couple of things that you think going to be the most profitable in your cluster and try to stockpile a few of those, or make them if you can as well, or make them once you transfer to sell, because they're going to be something where you can make a nice bit of cash. And finally, the last thing here is going to be to have a plan as an individual player, as a group if you've got a little group of people that you play with, and of course as a company if you are in a big company. Now if you're anything like me, we currently own Everfall on our server right here, but we are going to be merged over into a different server, and because we are not the host that's getting merged into, we are merging into them. That means we will lose our territory. Now, we do get a monetary compensation for this. I don't know how much it is yet. It was 15k, and then I believe it was raised to 50k. Now, I'm not entirely sure, so I'll bring you guys an update once that's gone through. But it does mean we're not going to have access to Everfall. Currently, we're earning 250-ish thousand a week, depending, some slightly less, some slightly more. And, you know, that's going to be 200k a week we're losing out on, essentially. And that's going to be a lot of money. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you have a plan for what you want to take over. So obviously, when we go into the new server, we may choose to take over Everfall. We may choose to take over Ebon Scale Reach, because obviously right now with the buffed elite zone there, the loot look that you get from owning a territory in that new buffed level 66 elite zone could be really, really good, as it does have the highest chests in the game right now. I think almost matching or maybe slightly above Merkgard, which is really, really good. So having that one for the look could be really, really good. Windswood is also another really good one. These tend to be generally like the hub of kind of all the activity in Eternum. So any of those could be really good. You've also got Reekwater, which can also be really good because, again, it's got the 2 elite zones. It's got Lazarus, so the look there maybe is going to be something we want to focus on. It's entirely up to you guys what you want to do individually as companies and such, but I would certainly have a plan for it as a player. I know that I'm going to go in there trying to make money. As my group, we know that we're going to go in and try and max out our gear scores. We've already got up to that 590 mark on most of our armor, so it is going to be a case of trying to make a bit of cash off of that and get our jewelry up to that 590 mark as well, as that is kind of a bit of a slog at the moment, but we are getting there with the new gypsum system. And then as a company, obviously we know we're going to go in and aim to take a territory, maybe Everfall or maybe another pivotal territory in the sort of world, but we'll see that as we get along. Other than that, guys, that is going to be it for today's video, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you have all enjoyed this one. If you have, please do be sure to leave a like on it, and if I've missed out any tips and tricks that you guys think I could have included for server merges, or anything that you want to do with you merge that could help other people, do leave that in the comments below. If you are new here to the channel and you want to see more New World content, then make sure you are dropping a subscribe, as I do upload every single day, so I would love to have you here as part of the channel community. And other than that, guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I will catch you tomorrow on tomorrow's upload. Take care, and peace.